Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas. It's me and Uncle Stevie today for the show as we're reflecting on Chelsea being crowned the best team in the world ever. Of course, after beating PSG convincingly in the Club World Cup. Back pages not only in England but across the globe saluting Enzo Maresca's team as we welcome in James Olley and Don Hutchison. Don, just to reflect a little bit more on what we saw in that final, Chelsea were really good.
They were amazing. I think they used PSG's strength as their weakness. The two fullbacks for PSG bomb on and they played Cole Palmer, not the number 10. They played them on the right-hand side, and the two wide players, him and Neto, sort of cheated and allow Mendes and Hakimi to sort of bomb forward, and then on the transition they had them in space. But I thought Caicedo was sensational. I mean, trying to stop that three-man midfield of Paris Saint-Germain, which I think is right up there with one of the best three midfielders in terms of how they complement each other. They are amazing players, an amazing team. So you've got to take your hat off to Chelsea and the work that Maresca and his players done. Fantastic performance. James,
it's your job to watch Chelsea. Were you surprised? You must have been surprised. There's no way you saw this coming.
No, not at all. I mean, they weren't particularly impressive in the group stage, and obviously the criticism all the way through, even when they were winning the knockout rounds, was, with respect to those teams, who were they playing? I mean, I was at the Benfica game, which they very nearly went out. It was kind of farcical situation, obviously, where there was a delay for 2 hours to come back to play the final few minutes. Because, of course, they were relying on Nicholas Jackson for the whole of last season. And as soon as Jackson got injured, they were suddenly thinking, well, do we play Cole Palmer through the middle? Pedro Neto tried to play through the middle. They played Tyreke George there at the back end of the season, an academy kid who, again, another one with potential, but no real experience as a centre forward. Suddenly now they've got two options that you think, well, if one gets injured, the other one can come straight in. And it's a real sort of straight fight between those two. Plus, of course, Jackson remains to be seen whether he's still there in September. But at the moment, they're talking about it as if the three of them are going to fight for those, well, probably that one position leading the line.
Now, what's interesting now is how what happened at the weekend has changed the narrative somewhat around Chelsea and their role as title contenders when the season starts next month. Take a look at how the bookies had things set. This was before the Club World Cup. They had 20-1, 14-1, 10-1 before the final, 8-1 now to win the Premier League, given what we saw in that performance against PSG. But is it a bit of a poison chalice, Stevie, in a sense that, hey, if you can play like that against the best team in the world, why can't you do that week in, week out?
Well, I think we've got to go back to the guy we've just been talking about, João Pedro. That's how big a difference
really
that having a proper centre forward makes to this team. During the season, and we sat here for most of the year, the majority of us talking about Nicholas Jackson, saying that we didn't think he was good enough. And although he did score some goals, we always kept saying, yeah, he took it well, but you can't rely on this guy. Well, this is a completely different kettle of fish. You've gone from Nicholas Jackson, who, if you're on your game and you're on top, you still don't know whether this guy's going to score. He needs 3 chances to get a goal, and he certainly doesn't get anything on his own. He's not one of those guys that creates anything for himself. And then you sign João Pedro, who does exactly the opposite. If you're on top and you're creating, he's going to score. I mean, look how he dinked the goalkeeper. That's just quality.
So we've got a 4-horse title race.
I think so, yes.
Really? Don, do you agree?
No.
Well,
no, Chelsea for me are not there yet. I think there's still areas. That they need to strengthen. Robert Sanchez.
Wait. Let Steve
just rewind
everything he's just said.
No, let me rewind. No, I think they're the top 40. They're not. If they
so when
play,
I said to you, are they title contenders, and you said yes, João Pedro really is. Does that make that much of a difference?
I didn't mean that. No.
Well, you did say that.
Well, hold on a second. Well, if you let me finish, I'd tell you what I was going to say, right? When I retracted.
I did let you finish. Then went to Dawn, and then you had some sort of crisis.
Tell me when you. No, this absolutely will solidify them in the top 4. If they have a João Pedro,
that's not the question.
No.
The question is,
Chelsea won't win the title.
So they're not in the title race.
And I won't retract it. Chelsea will not win the title.
Okay, all right then. Don, which Stevie do you agree with?
I think I agree with the latter, Stevie. They're not going to win the title because there's still weaknesses in their lineup. They still need a great goalkeeper. They still need, even though Robert Sanchez had a brilliant final, he played really well, and credit to him. But I think over 38 games in the Premier League, I think there's still a flaw there. I don't think Colwill and Chalobah as a two can carry Chelsea to a title.
But
I think
Don, if they've just beaten the best
teams
team in the
above them-
world, why can't they do that week in, week
Yeah, but
out
that's-
against mediocre opposition?
Because that's a one-off game. It's a one-off game. You've got to do it in the Premier League 38 times. And I'm not convinced. And I'm not knocking Chelsea, because what they've done winning the Club World Cup is amazing for them. It'll give them great confidence, and
But
it should
is this
do.
not just them
but it's still a
moving
very
on?
young
Is
team.
that not just them moving on with the momentum they built up towards the end of the season, where they
Maybe.
had the best form, obviously, out of everybody? And you take a look at their record, you're almost dismissing what they did at the final end of the campaign in the Premier League and suggesting that this was an anomaly when you take a look at these stats and it was anything but.
Yeah, but I mean, can you say this Chelsea side can claw, 16 points behind Liverpool? And Liverpool tailed off the last 5 games of the season, so effectively close to 20 points. So Chelsea's going to make 20 points up on Liverpool? I don't think this season, but what I am saying is you look at Chelsea now, and they are not far away in terms of one more window, and you buy a top-class goalkeeper and a top-class centre-back. The midfield's set, wide players are set. They're still talking about Jamie Gittins. You've now got 3 number 9s if Nicholas Jackson stays. So this Chelsea team are not a million miles away.
James?
Yeah, they're not a million miles away, but I think we also have to look at the impact of this Club World Cup on the start of next season. You know, these players have got 2-3 weeks off at the most. My understanding is they won't go away again this season. Their pre-season will basically be a training block at Cobham. They've got a few games at Stamford Bridge, a couple of friendlies, I think, over a weekend just before the season starts. They've already asked the Premier League to have the start of next season delayed and pushed back. That request has been rejected. They're clearly concerned about it. You got a sense from my time out covering them in America that Maresca was already had one eye on next season, thinking about the physical load that these players are taking on. They were complaining. We all know about the heat out there, the conditions, and how draining it was for the players at the end of a very long season. I think to expect this Chelsea team, which has some new component parts we've all talked about, having to come in together and gel. And yes, they've got a bit of a head start on that by playing out in this Club World Cup, but it's going to be different in the Premier League, having to do it week in, week out. To expect that team to start well and maintain a form over 38 games, it feels a little bit too early for them, especially when you consider they've got Champions League football next year. You know, the Conference League they had last season, and there's a bit of stat padding going on in that graphic you showed earlier, because of course the second half of last season they were playing, Farmers 11s every other week in the European third-tier competition. So there is an issue there that they've got to go back to the Champions League, where they're not going to be able to rotate an entire 11. They can't leave Cole Palmer out of the whole group phase like they did with the Conference League. That is a big step up for them to handle, not just the physical load that is going to be a consequence of this Club World Cup, but also the Champions League. It just feels too much to expect this squad from where they are now to go and win the Premier League next season.
Al final del partido hay una situación que creo totalmente evitable por parte de todos. Mi objetivo y mi intención, como siempre, es intentar separar a los jugadores para que no haya más problemas. Situación evitable, hay mucha tensión, mucha presión, y a partir de ahí hay una serie de empujones por parte de mucha gente que creo deberíamos evitar entre todos y que no debería volver a ocurrir. Pero, repito, mi intención, como siempre, evitar cualquier situación que vaya a mayores.
Well, that's not true. We didn't see any evidence of that
He
whatsoever.
really looked like he was trying to avoid it. Look at his face, he's ready for a punch-up.
I know. Naughty, Don.
Yeah, you can't do it. I mean, I always think Luis Enrique is quite sincere, but I think he just got lost in the moment. He was probably frustrated. His team didn't play well. There were odds-on favourites, and even the last 5-10 minutes was nothing going for them. Player sent off for pulling Cucurella's hair. It was just one game too much for them, and they lost their heads. And I think, to be fair, the coach lost his head at the end as well.
Yeah.
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 You
Yeah.
can't do it.
Yeah. James. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, let's hear from Enzo Maresca. This is what he had to say after the game. The Chelsea man, of course, proving his critics wrong once again.
Oh, no.
I have the feeling that this competition is going to be as important, if not more important, than the Champions League. He was been saying this all tournament, hasn't he, James?
No, funnily enough, after they played that last 16 game against Benfica, he was saying that the US shouldn't be hosting a major tournament. He was calling the whole thing a complete joke and really questioning why they were even there. With respect, to be fair to him, he was also saying that, you know, it was a big opportunity for them and all of that. But no, I mean, I think it's easy to say it's going to be the biggest competition after you've just won it. I think the only two people are saying that are him and Gianni Infantino, really. There doesn't appear to be anyone else who shares that view. But on a serious note, it is an important moment, I think, for Maresca, because although they finished the season very positively, they obviously secured Champions League qualification, massive win away at Nottingham Forest, and then they beat Real Betis to win their first trophy under the Bowley Clear Lake ownership. There were still murmurings, I think, behind the scenes among the fan base, really, about Maresca's style of play, about whether he was quite expansive enough, whether he was entertaining enough, whether there was really a sense of purpose to what they were doing, or whether it was just sort of possession for possession's sake. And I think that positive end to the season, Maresca's been able to take that into the Club World Cup. We've seen a bit of experimentation that actually helped him in the final, because he was experimenting with where Cole Palmer was playing. He played him out on the right against Flamengo, didn't really work, they lost. Played him out on the left in the tournament as well, a bit better, but you were still thinking, well, why is Palmer just not playing in his regular position as a 10? And then, of course, playing on the right against PSG, it proved to be a masterstroke. And I think it's a real validation and vindication of what Maresca's trying to build and work towards, that I think will give him a real sense of confidence and renewed purpose going into next season.
Don, you have been a massive champion of this tournament since the start. Nothing to do with being paid by a rival broadcaster, I'm sure. Is it one day going to be bigger than the Champions League?
No.
It's
Come on, I mean, the Italian champions, Napoli weren't in it. Liverpool, the English champions weren't in it, and Barcelona, the Spanish champions, weren't in it. My intrigue, as I've always said, and I stand by it, I was consistent in saying my intrigue in this competition was watching teams that I've never seen before, as in like Palmeiras, who I've never commentated on before, playing against European sides, or Ulsan HD, South Korean sides, playing against the South African side, and see how they got on against some of the European sides. That's where my intrigue come from. And I was at the Porto game, the Palmeiras game, when Messi scored his free kick in the top corner. Atmosphere was amazing. So that was my intrigue. And then you fast forward, you get PSG against Real Madrid in the semi-final, and PSG-Chelsea in the final. Of course, I was back home, not being paid. I'd done my work, but I was still intrigued, and I still watched the semis and still watched the final, because I love football and I wanted to watch it, and I wanted to watch different styles come up against each other. But it's never going to be as big as the Champions League. As I said before, Spanish champions not there, English champions not there, Italian champions not there, so it can't be bigger.
Some more Club World Cup questions to come over on Extra Time. As always, you can check that out over on our YouTube channel, where the boys stay late to answer your questions.